Hey folks, welcome back. So today is going to be more of a fun video, talking about kind of something that doesn't really matter, but it's just so fun to talk about. So, as we all know, flash hiders, like this one here, this is actually a real steel A2 birdcage flash hider. And as we all know, this is something that helps divert the gas, and so it serves a couple of different things depending on the type of model, but this one, particularly in the real function use, is used to divert the gas into these ported holes on the side of the flash hider here. So A, it dissipates the gas so that you don't get like a blinding flash when you fire from the hot gases. But B, it helps serve as a compensator too, because if you notice, it's not slotted on all the sides all around. At the very bottom, it's actually closed like this, right? And so what happens is that when you fire, gases aren't pointing down, it's only coming out the front. So the natural tendency, of course, when you're firing is there to be upward muzzle climb, right? And so because of that, it pushes it down, and it helps kind of maintain that level trajectory when you're firing. Other flash hiders, but that's a price though. The more it dissipates, the smaller the flash. So if it goes all around, you'll get a smaller flash signature, but a lower side, but if you won't get as much compensation. Something with this right here will have the compensation on the side, which is good. So that's just a little something about the little real history part.
Now, of course, every flash hider will be slightly different. The XM177 is a very different system. It's kind of a moderator because it attenuates kind of the noise of some of its internal baffling system, but not to the level of suppressor. And it also doesn't have that compensator sort of at the bottom, so it's actually slotted all the way through around from what you can tell. But either way, that's just the basic principle of it, though.
Now, in the airsoft world, does this really matter? No, obviously, right? Because there's no flash or hot gases that are coming out of these when you're firing them. But the other thing that's interesting though is that this actually at the bottom actually helps reduce dust signatures, because during the daytime when you're firing, the hot gases actually come down. If there weren't this flash hider, right, the hot gases would come down. If you're shooting prone to the ground, it would come down and kick up dirt and cause a dust signature and give away your location. That's something that's more applicable potentially to the airsoft world, right? Does, shooting prone to the ground kick up dirt? Does it kick up snow to the point where you can see it and it can give away your position? I'll save you some time right now. The short answer is no, but it doesn't matter really that much. But there is some kind of fun to this too. If you want to know the short answer is no, you can stop watching now. But if you want to see more to it, it's a little bit, maybe a little bit of some function to it, and it's not all just for show, right? So let's get into it right now.
Now, the first environment we're going to try to test this in, or test this principle in, is in the snow alpine environment. Currently, it's about 20 degrees outside right now, 18 to 20 degrees, I think, and snowing a little bit. I have to set up this tarp along with this emergency bivvy so I can crawl into it while I'm laying prone onto the ground to shoot it. And the reason, again, remember, is we want to be as close to the ground as possible in order to see if that gas can potentially kick up snow and give away your signature, or it kicks up snow to give away your position. In this sense, it's just not a dust signature, it's more of a snow signature, I guess. So let's take a look. This was not very comfortable, obviously, so I have to do my best to film this as fast as I could and then get back inside. But it was kind of fun doing this. And just as an FYI, I'm not reviewing, the bivvy here, but that SOL bivvy with some air-filled trash bags below you for insulation to keep the cold away from the ground, or keep the cold ground from sucking away the heat from your body. It's actually pretty effective. It didn't feel like it was 18 degrees outside. It felt a lot like it was more like a manageable 60, 65 degrees inside that bivvy. Again, it's not a review on that product, and it's definitely not a review on how these guns operate in these airsoft guns operate in the cold, but just an FYI. But as soon as you pull out that magazine, though, and start firing, this cold just saps it, and so you only have 15 seconds to work with it. Otherwise, the pressure goes down. So in reality, you'll never be in a situation where you need to be firing these guns and worrying about that, because these guns just don't work well in this environment. It's just too cold. and the gases don't even expand that much in the cold. Maybe the initial couple rounds when you're firing because it's warm, but after that it just dips down. So now we'll just watch the same clip again, but zoom in on the front of the gun. From what you can see, I don't think we're kicking up much snow. That could have just been parts of the gas that was vented, but I don't think there's any major snow being kicked up from it. I think you're probably more at risk of the gas coming out of it, the port of the ejection port, that's more likely to give away your position than the actual gas or the snow that's kicked up, if any, in front of you.
Well, it's on the green laser setting, works still, so not bad.
FYI, just after about like roughly 15-20 minutes in like 20-degree weather in the snow, that cheap red dot still works. But as soon as you bring it inside, of course, you get condensation on any glass product, doesn't matter what you are. So it's going to be a little bit tough to see, so you might have to wipe that off a little bit. But not too bad. Now, I'm not sure if after like 8 hours in that out there, would it still work? That's a different story. But today isn't a test about that. Today is just kind of an interesting thing to share. Now we're going to try to repeat the same thing, but obviously in this case, well, maybe not so obviously, but this has the flash hider attached to it, as you can see here. So we'll see how this goes and see if there's a big difference or not. Now it's packed with snow right now, so let's see how it does. If we rewatch the original clip in slow-mo, we can tell that at least when the muzzle or the flash suppressor here, or the flash moderator, is blocked with snow, the gases, when they're trying to escape the barrel, they will vent in the direction of least resistance, which is exactly those slotted edges in the flash suppressor or moderator, as you can see here. The snow blows out in the direction as if any real gas would be going out. So it kind of shows you that the gas system is working, but of course none of this is really significant to the player. It's kind of cool to see the direction of gas flow though. Of course, after the snow is gone and if the barrel is essentially unplugged, you can't see the gases anymore. And even though it looks like they're being directed where the flash hider is making it being directed, they're not really significant because, as you can tell, the area in front of the gun, there isn't any snow signatures that are being kicked up unless you're firing directly into the snow and it's causing that disruption in the snow. If anything, so yes, the gases are being directed where they should be because of the flash hider, but it doesn't really make any impact, and it's certainly not going to give away your position. In fact, when the rounds land in a certain area, that impact actually makes a greater disturbance in the snow and would be basically a bigger disruption in the snow than the gases that are coming out of the slots in the flash suppressor. So kind of cool to watch and kind of cool to know that it kind of flows in the direction we think it's supposed to. And you might be wondering, hey, look, that's the point of a flash suppressor or a moderator. It's supposed to attenuate the dust signature and minimize it, and that's why you didn't see any. But of course, remember back in the first clip when we shot without the flash suppressor, there was pretty much no change in disturbance in the snow in front of us. So again, there was just really no difference whether you have one or don't have one, essentially. So the flash suppressor, all it does is really directs the flow of gas a little bit in different areas where it should be directed, but that flow and direction doesn't really make an impact because the gases coming out aren't at high enough pressure that it really does anything to the snow in front of us. But again, it's kind of cool how it does flow. Now that was a little disappointing, so I'll try again with a higher FPS in the cold, so a CO2 MP5, and it has a shorter barrel too, so there's more, there's more room for that immediate pressure. And I'll try to move it so the snow is even closer to the muzzle and see if that does anything. So let's see here. We're going to try it right now. It doesn't seem to do a whole lot. So I'm going to move it a little bit closer and to be right on top of it to see what that does. All right, a little bit. There you go. So that has no flash hider basically on it. That's all gas being directed right out of the barrel. And remember, the shorter the barrel, the more likely the gases will be able to leave the barrel with a higher pressure and exert basically more of an effect on the snow. So the MP5s obviously have much shorter barrels than the XM177 or the M4. So with the shorter barrel plus the higher velocity plus the lack of a flash suppressor really has some impact on the snow, as you can saw in those pictures. So which is kind of cool. Let's repeat that with the MP5 or WE MP5 and see what happens now.
MP5.
Pitiful, but pretty cool how there's some effects, marginally greater disturbances in the snow. So I like that. A sign of some dust signature. And again, no flash suppressor, so there's some evidence that might be beneficial if we had one. I'm going to repeat the same thing, but with the Tokyo Marui M4A1. This has, remember, a longer barrel. It does shoot a lower gas velocity, but it has the flash hider on it with the slots only on top. So as you can see here, it didn't disturb the snow at all. I think it's a combination of all those things I just mentioned. Plus, remember, the A2 flash hider is solid at the bottom, and the holes are slotted only on top to divert the gas upward to compensate for that muzzle climb. And in this case, that resulted in basically zero impact onto the snow. Now I tried it again with the CO2 Glock right here.
CO2.
I didn't get a whole lot of effect, even though there was a short barrel and it fired CO2, but it could just be because it fires a little bit slower FPS than the rifles or the MP5, so that's why we didn't get that much. But so it's not all about the barrel length. It's, All right, so the alpine setting was basically inconsequential. It shows that there is some effect, a marginal effect, on whether you have a flash hider or not, but other factors are played too, like whether the barrel is overall longer or shorter, and the types of gas, whether it's a higher pressure gas or a lower pressure gas. But in effect, it has some role in it, but probably not very significant is the ultimate conclusion. But what happens if we bring it down to the indoor setting when it's no longer snow, but maybe it's dust? Because even though that snow was a very fine powder, it was still nevertheless fairly heavy compared to something like dust. So let's test that in an indoor environment. Now, if I were to fire from a standing position, again, it doesn't matter, but it has to be in the prone position. So let's try it with something like baby powder, talc essentially, and see how that performs. Maybe we can get a little more of a dramatic showing of the gas venting system of these flash suppressors in this situation. So there you have it, folks. Now the Marui, I was never able to remove the flash hider on that one, so I don't have a comparison. But as you can tell, in a dry or indoor climate with finer dust particles like talc, having no flash hider does seem to make a slight difference. When you see the WE with the short barrel and the higher velocity gas, definitely kicks up a little bit more dust, at least noticeably more than the when then you put the same system under with a flash suppressor. Again, this one probably won't give away your position any more than the sound or just your overall presence, but it's kind of cool to know that there's some noticeable effects when you're using these, and why you probably should continue to use it on your system. Other than just for the sake of imitating the realism part, but that's kind of cool. Overall, though, it's not the end of the world if you don't have one. You're not going to get like a blinding flash for sure, and you're not going to get, a huge dust cloud from that. But I think it's kind of nice to see that there can be some effects when using these. So I hope you all enjoy this. Kind of an interesting, it's kind of a fun thing. I wish there was more dramatic effects from this when you're firing in the prone position. But hey, you know what? Every little bit of extra known detail helps. And the bottom line is you can always say that, hey, it does do something, just not very, it's just not that important. But hey, there's some effects that it can play. All right, folks, see y'all next time.